Hey, everybody, welcome back to yet another small group podcast. Okay, we are actually you're meeting right now. This is the very end of the small group or of the Bible series. Okay, and we ended this series. It's been 7 weeks long, a long time. I understand, but it was so good. We had honestly so much more we could have talked about, but we ended this past Sunday talking about the longest chapter in the Bible, which is Psalm 119. That's right. You remember. You remember. So let me just share something. I think I might have mentioned this in my sermon, but for me personally, it wasn't really until between my junior and senior year of Bible college that my love for God's Word just expanded more and more. I had always appreciated God's Word, but then you go to Bible college, you're taught it. It's more of a textbook sometimes, sadly to say, it's more of a textbook. Um, but between my junior and senior year of college, I did this internship where the lead pastor of that church made me study Psalm 119 for the whole summer. So it's like 3 or 4 months of just Psalm 119. And I got to tell you, my love for God's word completely changed. Um, and the most interesting thing happened, and you'll discuss this in your group, but I started to recognize the more time I spent in God's Word, not just reading it, but engaging with it, memorizing it, the more when I faced different things that were going on, God's Word just kept like popping up into my mind. It was so interesting. So, like, if I was in some sort of situation and the opportunity arose to do something that probably wasn't as wholesome, or maybe wholesome's not even the right word. You know exactly what I'm talking about, though. It kind of went against God's word. It's like it would be right there, front and center. I would remember what God says about whatever topic, and it really got me thinking. And it's something that like I could have went so much deeper on the sermon with this, but just a benefit of being in a small group. I almost wonder like how many instances there are where we defer to other things, be it a post we saw, a social media influencer, um, a politician, maybe even a pastor we really like, or someone that's just kind of loud in the media. They might not be exactly scripturally accurate, but we don't really care, do we? We just like that they have a lot of followers. But it made me wonder, how often do we gravitate towards what a popular person says over what Jesus says, over what God's word says? And it's almost like our knee jerk reaction, right, needs to be whatever thing we're dealing with. The very first question that should always be asked: what does God's word say? And I did challenge you in the sermon with this. I think we challenge you every week with this, but it's not just about what God's word says. Everyone can know what God's word says. You read the Bible, you can go, oh, I mean, you could literally go in the Chat GPT, which is honestly a great tool for this specific occasion, and type in, what does God say about dating? And it'll come up with a slew of things. You can find information anywhere, and there's a big difference between knowing information and then having the transformation that comes from knowing the information. All right, there's a lot of shun words in there, okay? But information, sure, that's okay. But what we try to do at KCC and what these groups are all for is take the information and turn it into transformation. And to do that, you have to be inspired. So there's inspiration that also has to happen, right? You have to be inspired to change something, to change things. So the main verse in Psalm 119, it's 176 verses, 22 stanzas of all going through the Hebrew alphabet. We talked about that in the sermon. But the main verse, because you can try to narrow it down to several, but many scholars believe the main verse, like the thesis of the psalm, is verse 105. Your word is a lamp for my feet, a light to my path. And here's the promise that means. God's word, okay, the Bible, for lack of a better sense, it's the Bible, the thing that we can buy at any Barnes and Noble, okay? That will always guide you. I'm telling you, like, culture will tell you that it's outdated. It is so not outdated. In fact, it is. There's a reason that Paul writes to Timothy that God's word is living and breathing, that God's word is profitable for correcting, teaching, rebuking, all that for all time. It's because even now, the next generation, they're actually asking. They might not be asking specifically about Christianity alone, but they are so spiritually curious that they're asking this question: what does the Bible have to say about this? They're asking what other religions have to say. That's true. But we have such a prime time for our church, for the church, the Big C church across the world. Now is the time people are wondering, does God's word actually provide guidance in today's culture? And some of you might be wondering, where does Philip stand with this? Where does Kenny stand with this? Can I just say this? A resounding, we believe that God's word is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. We believe that every single thing you encounter in life can default back to God's word. You can find direction for anything you will ever face in life from the Bible, okay? But here's the thing, and I'm going to harp on this a lot, and I know I already have. You can know so much information, Christian, okay? Jesus follower, you can know so much information. What are you doing with that? It doesn't really do a lot of good to encounter somebody and to be able to quote text to them. It goes a lot further when, because of the way you live, people ask you why. And people will. Why do you do things differently? Why are you this way? And when you can come back to them with a resounding, look, Jesus has transformed my life, here's what he teaches, that will go a lot further than you being able to quote 50 texts from the Bible about why such and such a position is wrong. Not saying you shouldn't know your stuff, but the main thing you should know as a Jesus follower is this promise. Your word, God, is a lamp for my feet, a light for my path. If you have kids at home, it's a light for their path, whether they acknowledge that or not. If you have grandchildren, it's a light to their path. If you have been praying, and I hope you have been, for the people in our White House, the people in our Congress, the House, everything, know that God's word is the light to their path. Not a policy, not this side or that side, but God's word. God's word is a light to the path. So my questions for you, and you'll see in your study guide, like, how has that played out in your life? Think about that, discuss it, and next week we'll come back we've got a couple individual sermons that are coming up. But I think this has been a really great 7 weeks talking just about the Bible, but the conversation is just starting. Again, my encouragement for you, don't let this be something that you just process information. God's word is meant to not just be informational, but transformational. So talk amongst your group, amongst your spouse, your kids, how God's word has transformed you. And I look forward to hearing those stories. And we'll see you next week. But thank you for hanging in for the Beginner's Guide to the Bible.